And fancy seeing you guys here all of again. My God, it's been almost a month and it's been boring and quiet. And finally, we might actually see some weather. What it's going to be, we're going to discover that together. Thank you for joining us here tonight at our first live stream in a while because, as I said, there's literally been nothing going on at all. It's been very stable, locked in, high pressure dominating pattern, which is not unsurprising for July, given it's sort of time of year when we start to see this sort of westerly belt sort of creep northwards and sort of dominate us. And again, also the influence of the Southern Stratospheric warming event, which is happening. And if I hadn't had some personal events of the last week, I would have been actually looking at that, but I've been a little bit distracted, as you could appreciate. And talking about that is actually his medication time, and I forgot to give it to him. Oh, he can wait half an hour. He'll be fine. He's sleeping on my desk in front of me, so he'll be happy. I'm surprised he's actually not chatting to you all right this very time. Thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you. As you can see, the chat is live. Please hop on and interact. Questions, no worries. This is going to be a short, sharp, and sweet one because I don't think there's a lot to discuss at the moment, but we'll see from the model reactions together exactly what's going on, and we can then plan from there. Maybe we might have more of these this week, and maybe it might be just a overhyped event like usual. Anyway, let's go quickly look at the satellite picture. This is the current pattern. We can see today those northwesterlies, which brought some milder temperatures, as I flagged this morning, but then they swung to that westerly and gusty sort of phase about early afternoon, lunchtime, and something like that, and cooled down quite dramatically after that. And so the max temps ended up to be 16 to 19 across the basin, but basically after lunch the feels like temperatures were sort of single digits, and it was actually got quite chilly if you're out in the air. The sun was quite pleasant, and there was a gorgeous sunset, so hopefully you're out there and you saw it. Got some pictures of it. If you did, stick them on the page. We'd love to see them, or flick them through DMs. Now that actually sort of having a life back again, I can start to look at some stuff. But satellite picture's interesting at the moment. We've got quite a massive cold change off WA. You can see it's actually pushed way up into the tropics. And you can see by this dotted cloud, very cold air, and you can see the reverse, this little cutoff low here, which is being cut off. And the reason they're called cut off is because they've been cut off from the westerlies, which drive them, and it's going to spin along the Gulf and should start to actually give us some rain. This is what's going to be the precursor for some showers on Wednesday to Friday, and then possibly the upper cold air, which is popping up with this as well, will be then what we'll see on Friday through the weekend into early next week. We'll see that in the models very soon. You can see actually this is the other key feature here is this massive long wave trough, which is backing right down onto the edge of Antarctica, and you can see there it's pulling up some extremely cold air. Ahead of it's drying down some pretty mild air too, so that's quite a vigorous thing. You can see quite a lot of cloud with that associated, quite a vigorous one. Colder backing way up into Central Africa almost. That's a pretty strong change. And that's also going to contribute to what we're going to see coming this weekend, and what we'll see exactly, I'm not sure. This is probably the area we want to watch down here. This little polar low here, what it throws up. Because you can see it's just in the process now of actually developing and spinning around. And this is what we'll expect to sort of combine forces with this cutoff low here and throw up some incredibly cold air later this week. And that's what we're going to be watching to see exactly what it does and how it interacts. Going for tonight let's go and have a look. We'll zoom in and get out this satellite picture for you. We'll go to temps. And if I can pick the right button, quick look into here. Yeah, always the wrong click down. Okay, so it's looking to be, if again the key is the winds, so let's watch the winds. If the winds die down, it's actually going to be a pretty cold night, considering there's a bit more of a cold air wrapped around a small low that's off to the southeast New South Wales, and also another small circulation of Tasmania, sort of reinforcing a bit of cold air and dragging some of that cold air from upstairs down. And we'll see what the temperature is going to be over. It says here, I don't look there actually, that's current temperatures, idiot. If I go to forecast the weather, there we go. Yeah, definitely single digits. I think it'll be a bit cold now. We'll check Axis C, because Axis C has actually been pretty damn good at the minimum temperatures recently. It's been pretty ordinary at some other temperatures, but it's not too bad here. And you can see some pretty cold mins, especially in those valleys there, the area. So yeah, look around that sort of Campbelltown, Cameron area. You can maybe 6 degrees, I think 6 to 11. We'll go again like last night, pretty much in that range. Maybe, I mean, Camden was a standout last night, quite weirdly, because it was completely distinct from anywhere else. It got down to 2, and no model actually it wasn't even close to that. It was 4 degrees away. You can even see here now, it doesn't even get close to that. So there's definitely a lot of subsidence and a lot of just radiation going on and radiative effect going on, and all that heat escaping, all that warmth, not really heat at this time of year, escaping into the atmosphere. And Camden was the sole survivor of that. Nobody else, even Richmond, I think was like 5 or 6 degrees or 7 degrees, not even close to 2 degrees. So take about Camden, you are well above everybody. But I think it'll be a lot more widespread tonight, especially again if the wind dies down. So keep an eye on that, especially now the sun has gone down. We'll tend to find that those gusts will settle right down. And a lot of this cold, dry air that's on the western side of the Great Dividing Range will leak over into our side of the range and definitely nestle and snuggle into those lower lying areas. And that's what we want to see, just how cold it's going to be tonight. But I think 6 to 11, you pretty bank on it. And then getting colder this week as this system develops. All right, let's go into it and let's get into the exciting part. We'll go with EC to start with. It should be fresh off the tracks. Let me just check that for you right now. It is updated 7 hours ago, so it's not updated just yet. So then we'll flick across to somebody who is going to play with us nicely. So let's go to, we'll go to GFS. I know GFS is updated. It's been very prompt lately. And we will zoom out a bit again if I get the wheel. Oh my God, one of these days I'm going to learn how to drive this freaking mouse. Good thing I don't drive a car that way. All right, so we'll go wind gust because I find that's pretty better indication of what we can expect and just what is happening in the atmosphere. People see some swirly things on weather maps and go, oh my God, that's the low, it's an East Coast low, we're dying. And do not know how to read these maps, so we'll look at that. So we're going to skip through to Wednesday. So Wednesday we're going to see this just broad area here. You can see from the south there's this this cold change pushing out, which is what I flagged here, and you can see this upper system really sort of hammering down, and it's going to drag some of that cold air that's coming across from WA down. We'll look at the upper temperatures in a minute. And this is what's going to kick off some showers. You can see here just a broad sort of trough with a bit of a Tasman low trying to form. You can see the trough again, this bulge out to the west. That's the trough, and you can see how this quite vigorous southerly southeasterly flow is pushing into it and then hooking around. Obviously that's where the greatest obviously areas of showers left will be, because that's where the convergence is as it hooks around and heads out. Or the north coast, basically north of the Huntsville will be on that sort of drier flow. We'll be on this sort of coastally shower, drizzly trash. But this is where we're going to watch, and I'm going to actually drag up because we don't really care what's happening up there. It's going to be a bit of combination. It's from those horrible systems again, where there's going to be some moisture and stuff coming in from the north. And collide, and an inland trough sort of collide with some very cold air coming up from the south, and where it forms and what it does after that, we'll redefine the record books maybe. But basically we're going to be on this cold, windy sort of regime from the south for a few days into Friday, and then we're going to see this real surge of southerlies come up. You can see them developing now, getting off the coast, that orange sort of colours. You can see them starting to get intensified, but it's into the weekend now. EC, GFS, you can see there's not a real lot happening there. We're on wind gusts, aren't we? I'm sure we are. I hate the way it doesn't show you on wind anymore what you're on. It just has like, you could be in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, it is wind gusts. You can see generally speaking, there's a broad sort of trough up the north coast. You can see this massive surge of southeasterlies into it and really colliding with the coast. And you can see there's that area is really starting to pick up now and start to intensify. And again, GFS is really like a very northern Tasman Sea, southern Coral Sea sort of scenario, which is that sort of clash between those air masses I was saying about. And you can see this trough forming here, not a low at all. You know, it's barely even enough to knock over a wet paper bag, and that's definitely a trough. That's not a low. You can see there's not a closed circulation here. It's just very, very strong trough. And you can see just in response to that extra sort of warm, moist air, and then that colliding with that cold air, really hammering them. You can see it's well off Brisbane, and you can see now it's massive sort of, it's probably maybe a warm, cold low, probably more like it's pretty cold, cool low, but that's well off the coast, and that's definitely like a Tasman low, a northern Tasman low, but you can see it's just ginormous. One of those freaking beasts again. You can see it's well off the coast here with GFS, and really enforcing. You can see just ramming around and just wobbling around in the Tasman and hanging on there. So I'm assuming with GFS is probably not going to see a lot for us now after it had sort of a wet period, which is why I always exercise caution when you post one model and go, oh my God, it's the end of the world. It's trouble for us now. And I really restrain. You'd be very proud of it. I restrained myself from posting something yesterday when I got in my inbox about someone, a certain weather page posting this sort of hyperbole, hypergeddon, what I call it, clickbait trash again. And I'm like, no, I'm going to restrain myself this time. But I could not help this morning because I didn't want people to be hooked into the hype train. All right, we'll go and look at, so basically there's zero on GFS. Now I kind of know it does have some stuff because when I was looking at temperatures, I know that. So it's basically starting off much like GFS. You can see this real surge of this colder air coming up with this southerly change, and you can see this real surge of moist northerlies, pretty bit dry there because it's from the northwest. By the time they get down here, you can see it's going to be a bit moist traveling across that Tasman Sea. And you can see it now wrapping into this rapidly advancing trough. You can see here the bulge starting to on the west there. You can see obviously where the trough is aligned more east-west. Now, that's interesting in itself. And you can still see it's very much east-west here. And again, so you can see it's really just absolutely just exploding because that cold air running into that warm air. You can see, actually might go here more to the right. You can see how just a massive trough, like it's thousands of kilometers wide. And you can just imagine like this is a big tsunami of cold air racing up the Tasman Sea. And it forms obviously a bit of a circulation there. It's not a low, it's more a trough. You can see how it starts to tilt more northwest, southeast. Now that's the key we want to watch because that's where we want to start to watching where lows or activity starts to develop on the western side as it does that pivot. Off it goes over there, and you got this little trough extending back towards the coast here. And this is where we start to watch where things start to get interesting, I reckon. So keeping an eye on that, massive surge of cold, nasty southerlies up. And you can see the trough up here still sort of hanging around, not much happening on that perspective. And then starts to hit some of this moister, warmer air of the coral sea. You can see that bend start to the elbow start to appear, classic sign of a trough. And then, ooh, so behind we got a bit of a trough developing here, not a low yet, but you can see definitely that circulation within the trough as it starts to really intensify off. And then you can see it start to sort of retrograde down to the south. Now, that's not a low, that's still a trough. You can see here that trough is really forming right down the coast again, this situation we had last time. So you can see the dramatic effect of that warmer air pouring in. You can see the trough here bulging down to the southwest. And you watch the wind streams right along the coast here as they start to bend and the trough starts to develop basically right along the coast within a few hours, quite significantly. So you can see here, starting to, then you can see these little bends and these little bumps in the isotex, if I remember what, well, no, isostreams. Isotex is temperature. And you watch in response to that just a couple of hours how it quickly amplifies, and that's because the cold air above it is really helping this fire up. You can see the bends now starting to appear in all the winds right up and down the coast, basically from the northern Illawarra right up through to southern Queensland, southeast Queensland. And then you can see that really start to develop. And as we push into Saturday, you can see the bends right up in the coast now. And you can see all these lines are squeezing together. That's going to be the area for most. You can see here the trough lies pretty much offshore. So, so northern Hunter, southern mid-north coast, even mid-north coast and the far north coast, not much. That's a trough, that's not a low, so don't let anybody tell you otherwise. They see spinning things. It's just the software's digital sort of analysis, but doesn't necessarily mean there's a low there. But you can see there's no circulation. There's no occluded sort of circulation there. It's just sort of wrapping into a very broad area. But you can see the main areas here, how these winds are now wrapping into the coast and then sort of squeezing in and then just stopping. And that's indicating some good showers. I'm assuming Icon's going to have a pretty wet scenario. And you can see here now as it pushes down, again, not a low, just a deep surface trough, a coastal trough lying right down into the northern Illawarra and starting to develop right into the southern coast, south coast. And you can see here, again, not a low, just a very aggressive trough. You can see where it's ramming in and pushing in, and you can see really pushing into the Hunter and us and into the Illawarra and then sort of pushing south. I'm assuming Icon's going to be very wet for us in that period of time, and it sort of hangs around us again right for the whole time. You can see how really nasty system developing off the north coast, off the coast, and nothing to worry about for them. But you can see a really nasty system as that cold air rams into that warm, moist air. And you can see off the coast low here, not on the east coast low, but you can see the back end of the trough here really putting some pretty gusty, nasty winds extending down the coast to around mid-north coast, and then off it goes. And then again, this broad area of trough and massive trough. You can see here how that big bend, that's a huge trough. It's not a low, it's a huge, huge trough. Very much the sort of recent system we have. Again, no east coast low there whatsoever. So yeah, but that's a pretty strong trough. And even though it has a nice little swirly feature there in the middle, that is just more just showing you where the trough is lying. As you can see here, really just all over the place. Definitely no focal point there, no sort of occluded area. It's just small circulation tries there. You can see how that hook comes back like a wave crashing into the sea. Definitely tries to get a low going there. Definitely. Still well off the coast though. Has a weak low, or not a weak low, but it's quite a strong little circulation. But that's more probably going to be, I would imagine that's going to be actually a warm chord low, not an east, so it's not an east coast low at all. Because you can see how the circulation, the winds are quite strong around the very sort of low level circulation center there. If that is a low, that's a warm chord low, not an east coast low. But still, it's well off the coast, so it doesn't even fall within the definition of an east coast low. It's just a coral sea low now because it's pretty above the Tasman Sea. I think Tasman Sea was it finished around the border, doesn't it? So it's pretty a coral sea low there. It's pretty right in the border, but it doesn't last long anyway. You can see it's just really forming in that massive surge of that cold air as it pushes up. Briefly spins up something and then quickly gets shredded to pieces because the support or what it's causing, that instability, is quickly cut off from it, and as you can see here, dies out a natural death there. All right, let's have a quick look at access for you so it won't spoil the surprise. We'll go back to here. All right, so I assume access is up to date, please. It should be. I'll quickly check. Updated 1 hour ago. Yep, excellent. Let's see if the EC's updated. EC still has not updated, which is disappointing. All right, access. Let's go. We'll kick through to Wednesday. Pretty much the same scenario with GFS and Icon both had pretty strong change coming up the coast with some pretty cold air, and I'll show you some upper temps in a minute. And you can see in response to those incredibly cold upper temps, pretty strong gusty south to southeasterlies develop. Coastal showers basically too, and then we start to see this is where it gets to this area here where it's colliding with this warmer, moisture air on the southern Coral Sea, northern Tasman Sea. You can see again this trough developing, that sort of hook, although not as pronounced, but you can see it starts to extend this coastal trough right down to the southwest again. You can see that bump right here where the winds are sort of bumping around like an elbow, right down through to us. And again, you can see that coastal trough forming. That's not a low at all. Don't let anybody tell you that's the case. And again, coastal trough pushing right down into basically almost in this northern south coast. So you can see how the winds are elbowing up. And we're going to Saturday now, and you can see again coastal trough, not a low. There's no defined circulation. It's not included there. Again, those little streamlines you can see there on this are just a digital rendition of what the software believes is happening. It's not necessarily mean it's a low. It's an area of low pressure, absolutely, that's what troughs are. But you can see, generally speaking, it's coastal trough developing, pushing down into that northern, southern coast, south coast district. Again, you can see where the winds are ramming into the coast and then wrapping up to the north. That shows you just how far that trough is pushing south into Saturday. Again, very much like Icon. So Icon access, very similar. So pretty aggressive coastal trough coming up. You can see no coast circulation there, no low there, just a pretty nasty trough. And you can see the important feature to note is actually the access. It's tapping into that northerly and northeasterly surge, and that should definitely see some good rainfall about where the focus areas. You can see here, not a low, no circulation, just a damn strong, nasty coastal trough. And look at the fetch of those winds wrapping in from thousands of kilometers away and then ramming into the shoreline, the surface, and then just basically dying and wrapping into the other side of the trough. So there'll be some good rainfall and access. Look at the size of that bugger. That's just ginormous. That is freaking huge. That's a massive trough. No low, again. People will see that and go, oh my God, it's a low from hell. It's actually just an inflow band, which is quite normal. And you can see very much like Icon, except this location quite distant off the coast as the two icon had a bit closer, but again, still wrapping around on the southern side, ramming into us. And then Axis is going for a pretty nasty Coral Sea low, Tasman Sea low on the border, whatever you call that, but it's still well off the coast. 100 knots on whatever that is going to be called, and what will depend is the surface temperatures, whether it's warm or cold. But you can see that stage is pretty a cold call over. Look at that, that is just impressive. Well off the coast, you can just see it absolutely explode. 100 knots is category 3 tropical cyclone, so no real defined low level circulation center there. As you can see, it's just always sort of massive winds, so pretty more a cold call low, I'd say, at that stage, so pretty more a Tasman low, but just a beast of a thing. And at its height, it's going to push back some pretty gusty winds back towards the coast, especially the north coast, but just on the coastal fringe, nothing much going past through that sort of coastal edge. These sort of abutments, or going in there to the inland, is more the higher ground, so that's the peaks where it's catching the sort of the shear above the surface and on the surface, those stronger winds, which says to me that it's definitely a cold caller. And if I was to go here and just go back to winds, you can see there's a little surface, but no, I'm not sure about that. That's nice little looking there. But if we go above the surface here, you can see why there's stronger winds here, catching those winds. That's a pretty decent low there. It's got a occluded circulation, so it's pretty warm core low. We'll have a look at temps. That'll give us a better indication. Yeah, pretty more a warm core low, so definitely not an ECL. Can't be an ECL. It's warm core. ECL is a cold core. Coral Sea low, warm core low, but you can see here, relatively speaking, 21 degrees at this time of year, as opposed to 18 and stuff south. Yeah, it's marginal, but who's going on? Somebody carrying on? Are they in the chats? I'm actually trying to focus on what I'm doing here, but I'll have a look at that right in a second. Anyway, let's go. So we've seen what Axis is doing there. Oh, that's actually EC. Why is it going EC? We're looking at Axis. Why did you switch to EC? Anyway, I don't know why it went to EC when I was on Axis. That's very weird. But anyway, we'll go back to the wind gusts here. And while we've got Axis is showing off the rest of the weekend, and then we'll go back and have a check out. So well off the coast, definitely a beautiful looking system there, but definitely not going to pose any threat to the coast other than maybe the very coastal edge, and that will be more those sort of gusty winds, and you can see then quickly dissipates and heads off again. That's sort of definitely indicated by the massive jump in the sand we saw just the other day. It jumped 0.1, went from minus 0.4 to a plus 0.4 in one day, which sort of indicates there's some fine weather probably coming. All right, let's go and see if our last Resolute outstanding model, Mr. EC, is updated yet, and then we'll quickly check the chats. All right, let's go. 23 minutes ago. Yeah, you beauty. Okay, we got this live react here. Let's go. So let's see what EC is going. So it's going pretty much what Icon and Access and to some extent GFS. So we can pretty much say cold change due sometime Wednesday. Going to be pretty gusty, some pretty cold air with it, pushing up well into the northern Tasman in southern Coral Sea. In response to that, coastal trough is going to develop. You can see again by these winds starting to bend as they hit the coast. In response to that cold air, what's EC doing? EC is going the same as Access, the stage, and not developing the trough as it pushed back, pretty much the same as Access, which is incredible. Again, not a low, just a coastal trough. You can see the bend in the isobars going, or the wind stream, sorry, going right down into the northern south coast. Again, definitely a good steep coastal trough going there. You can see that coastal trough rare, quite clearly indicated by that. There's little bends right down into here. You see the wind streams there, bending, and then heading north, northwest, northeast after they hit the coast. So pretty much exactly what Axis is going. Pretty much a deep coastal trough. Hunter through to northern Illawarra, maybe most Illawarra as well, but definitely the focus is going to be more Central Coast and Sydney and Illawarra looking at this again, Sydney getting absolute smashed from EC, and pretty much what Axis was showing. That's outstanding to be finally in agreement. Look at that. Roughly within probably 200 kilometers of each other. Not bad. Finally, after they sort of haven't been agreeing for a week, and then pretty much the same. Maybe far north coast might catch some gusty winds from it, but really no threat other than as if you're a humpback whale migrating somewhere. But yeah, so it's not going to hang around too long. You can see some pretty good north easterly and easterly fetch into this, so there'll be decent falls, but it quickly cuts off once that cold air gets north, and you can see here starting to cut off the flow as that low really bombs. So Sunday sort of lunchtime, you can see cuts off those and turns more southeasterly. You can see again starts to push more inshore. You can see that basically the whole potency of the trough is basically starting to disappear and focus on this beast up here, whether it's going to be coral sea low or Tasman sea low. I guess they can argue about that up there, but really then by Sunday evening you can see basically it's sucked all the fun and joy up into it, and behind will be some onshore sort of stream showers, definitely, because there's just the fetch of these winds is going way from a long way. Let's zoom out. You can see it's coming in from New Caledonia all the way down. Impressive system of that, just beautiful. But again, not much real threat to anything us other than some massive surf and some pretty strong gusty winds on the coast and out. There'll be some good showers initially when it first sort of fires up. You can see here the winds are running basically parallel to the coast, in fact just a little bit offshore as well, so anything that does go might just shower might get the far sort of exposed eastern part, but not a lot anywhere else. It should be some decent onshore showers down here, you'd think, because of that, definitely that sort of east southeasterly stream. We'll see. All right, quickly look at some accumulated rainfall totals now for this. So look at EC. We'll do it from Wednesday, which is when it's supposed to start. You can see some nice showers pushing through. So the numbers you can see there are actually potential rainfall. So we'll go through now into the end of the weekend. Let's see where it's going for us. Not bad, 150 mils on the coast. And the good thing about that, we're going to zoom in now and just focus on us and the main areas. Some pretty big falls there, especially southern Hunter. In Hunter, 100 mils on the coast, 150 mils down to it. So definitely some big falls up into Western Sydney as well on EC. So that's definitely going to be some interesting times if that happens. But you can see most of it is on the coast and not into the mountains. So at this stage, fingers crossed, should not put too much pressure on those streams and that sort of stuff. But again, we've seen stranger things happen. And looking forward at that, yeah, that's basically the end of that there. So most of that I'm assuming is going to fall Saturday, Sunday. Let's check that out. Yeah, nearly 90 mils in just a 48-hour period. So yeah, all in all, a wet and windy and pretty wild weekend coming up and end of the week. Let's have a look at GFS. It's got GFS, as we said before, much less scenarios, so 70s up to 50s, but still 50 to 70 mils for all the Sydney basin. Most people will be happy with that. Some good follow-up rains, especially as we head into the drier part of winter, August and in September, which is quite dry too, so it'll be quite welcome. Icon, I'm assuming, is going to be pretty well. Actually, Icon's drier than others. Interesting, but still not bad. Again, some more falls, definitely along the coast, but from Seal Rocks down to the Illawarra, so definitely nothing to worry about in that mid-north coast, which is good to see. And again, hundreds, even in hundreds up into Western, so basically nearly the whole of Sydney Basin for 100 mils. That's pretty impressive. So yeah, let's hope that happens. That'd be nice sort of follow-up fall again. And Axis, pretty much like EC. No real pressure on the north coast, mid-north coast, which is good. Some up in the back end of the Hunter, so may put some pressure on the Hunter River, but we'll see. But some massive falls along the coast, basically from south of Hunter right through to that sort of Illawarra, southern Illawarra, on Axis's view anyway. So up to 170 mils, 150 mils, and pushing inland too, nearly up to 100 mils in the west. Be nice. Bit of a rain shadow down here in the south. Not unsurprising given that's where the direction's coming from. There tends to This is a bit of a rain shadow effect here from that escarpment on the Illawarra, northern Illawarra, so that's why that's always seems to be sort of lighter colours there, but we'll see. A bit more of an east sort of tweak and you'll get better falls across the basin. So all in all, looking at some good rain coming and some definitely wild and wet weather, windy weather, but nothing lowish at this stage. Alrighty, let's go into the chat. Let's go cold morning. Yeah, it's been cold with that wind. Westy's hooked in after lunchtime. Definitely much cool. Yeah, you Mr. Freaks. You can play semantics if you want, but everybody quite clearly knows that it's a tropical low pressure or a low, which is in occluded system. So good try about that, Freaks. But yeah, anyway, time travel. I definitely need a time travel too. Definitely. If I had a time travel machine, there's definitely some things you would change. I imagine, no doubt, in the past. I've got top chat. Let's change that to live chat so all the voices are there so I don't lose it. It's not a low actually, Freaks. So please get your terminology correct. It is an area of low pressure, correct, but it is not a low, which is a defined area of low pressure. Bit of a difference there. And you're actually incorrect, Mr. Freaks. A warm core low doesn't have to be a tropical cyclone at all. It means it's the area that is warmer. So again, correct, wrong. This means that the area of the low is actually warmer than its surrounding environment. And that's where it gets its instability from, clearly. So maybe perhaps go and read something. That's not incorrect. And not all warm core lows are tropical cyclones. All cyclones are lows because that is the actual correct metallurgical term, but they're not all tropical cyclones. So they have to have sustained knots of 34 knots around 3/4 around a level of circulation center. You can still have warm chord lows that don't reach cyclone stage. They're called tropical lows. You know, they're not tropical cyclones. There can be lows, there can be all sorts of classifications. They don't always be cold chord. I wouldn't worry about Freaks. He's just obviously just someone here who's just trying to pretend he knows nuts, but he doesn't know much. Yeah. Let's go down. Possible 2 lows of far north coast. No need to see. I've got some with it. Yeah, that's we saw on those model resolutions there. There's definitely some sort of system that's going to develop in response to that incredibly cold air moving up from the south. And I guess we'll see, but definitely not going to be an east coast low. Not even close to it. Not in anywhere near definitions. None of the dynamics are. It just looks like another pretty deep surface trough again, interacting with whole range of stuff. Going to make it nice and interesting for us again. Yeah, not East Coast though. Not in code at all. 6:33. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Not. You're incorrect, Freaks. Like whatever you're talking about, dude. It's easy for you to say incorrect. I'm not going to be worried one thing you say. You're just some internet keyboard warrior. Go and clack on your keyboard. That's cool. Nice to have you on board here. And Google's be your best friend. Clack away, but you're still wrong. You were wrong last time too, if I remember. You came on here, spat out some information. Again, you were wrong. How does it go being wrong twice in a row, Freaks? Dude, love it. Come and join us anytime. You just make yourself appear more of an ignoramus. That's all right. Up to you. It's up to you, dude. No worries. Yeah, a tropical cyclone is a warm chord low. Of course it is, because it's in the tropics. That's why it's called a tropical cyclone. But not all warm chord lows are tropical cyclones. There you go. I mean, technically, as I've said before, all those are cyclones. Whether they're warm chord or cold chord, they're still cyclones because that is actually the correct meteorological term for them. But we don't adhere to that naming convention here in Australia. They call them lows and tropical lows. That is the way they call them here, and that's the naming convention. But if you want to go with the World Meteorological Association organization, correct term for a cyclone is a low pressure system. Same thing. That's the correct actual meteorological term. We don't use that here. Same as we don't use hurricane, same as we don't use typhoon, they don't use their terminology. So try harder. Keep going. Keep going, freaks. You're just... Keep going. We don't have warm front. It's not a warm front. This is catching up to. It's not overtaking a warm front. You're going from NOAA, which is an American organization which has warm fronts. So you just embarrass yourself even more. Keep going with your Google paste. Go for it. Occluded just means closed off. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an occluded front. Again, keep embarrassing yourself. It's lovely. You cut and paste, but what you're doing is you're showing how you Google search. You have no idea what it even means. So congratulations. So you can just rabbit on and embarrass yourself. Keep going. Keep cutting from NOAA. That's great. Yep. And NOAA definition of La Nina is different to the Bureau's definition of La Nina. There's a whole lot of things that they term differently to Australia. So maybe get the old Google to point to .au instead of .com or something. There was a very brief occluded front on the Bureau site. Again, that's correct, off Southern Australia, not near us and not in relation to this. So, you know, keep drawing. I don't know. It's not even worth arguing with people like you because you just keep embarrassing yourself even more. You take one piece of information and then you extrapolate it and you make it out to be a template for every response that someone says after that. You're one of those Karens and Kevins who love to spout facts, but you have no idea what you're talking about. Good job. Nice. But you just keep going. Because I know no one has time for that and we all have places to be. So, good job. Good job. I see warm fronts all the time. I'm calling it warm fronts. This has nothing to do with that. This is this weekend. What's it to do with right now off Southern Australia? What is the difference? Nothing. No one's even talking about that. I don't get what you're saying. And the Bureau even would say quite frankly with me, they're rare here in Australia. Incredibly rare. Incredibly rare because we don't have the landmass between here and Antarctica to create that occluded front like they do in America, which is why they're so frequent over there. We don't have that. I did not say they didn't exist. I didn't say that at all. Go back and listen again. I said they're rare. It's rare here. So, yeah. Keep typing, keep going, keep embarrassing yourself, freaks. You keep Google searching. It's all good. I don't mind debating any day of the week because you have no idea what you do without Google searching. Here I'm here live reacting to your stuff and you're quickly, madly on your keyboard banging something out that you don't even know what it's about. Cut and paste. That's right there on the website, mate. Yeah, but you don't know what it means. You don't even know what it's saying. You don't even know what the interaction, why it's caused that way. You have zero idea. You just look at cut and paste. You look at a Google definition, and that's as best as you got. Good, but you can't debate anybody like you because your standard reply is, but that's what Google says. You can't even tell me what the mechanisms are. What's creating it? How it's interacting it? Why is it an occluded front? Why is there a warm front down there at the moment? All that sort of stuff. You can't even tell me. All you can say is it's a cut and paste in the Bureau. The Bureau said it's on the chart. Good job, mate. Congratulations. I love that you're here. Keep going because you're just making it fun. It's all good. But anyway, no one else has got some decent questions other than Mr. Freak, so that's good. Welcome anytime. And I don't anybody harass him about being here. He's quite entitled to his opinion. You know, that's the whole thing. I don't mind him having his opinion whatsoever. It's great to have someone that wants to have a debate about stuff. But you can't debate someone who just looks up Google and repeats ad nauseum what Google says when they have zero idea about the mechanics of it. And then they haven't even looked at what mechanics are for this potential system this week. Zero idea. Zero idea. Where'd you get yours, freaks? Yeah. None. Oh, I'm happy to debate anytime. You're debating it now, and all you can do is tell me Google cut and paste. That's all you can do. I'm live on the stage, and you're madly off screen hammering your keyboard and copying and pasting what Google says to you. Dude, that's not a debate. Like, your common answer for everything is, well, that's what Google says. That's what the Bureau has on its site. You have no idea what's even causing that occlusion. You have no idea what even that warm front means. You have zero idea what any of that mechanics are or the processes behind it. You're just repeating ad nauseum what A, someone else is telling you, or B, what Google's telling you. I can't debate you with that because you're standing there and says, but what about this? It's not a debate. That's a one-way conversation. That's good. You're quite welcome to that. That's fine. Good. If your degree is atmospheric science, then you should be embarrassed about some of the things you're saying on here. Absolutely embarrassed about some of the things you're saying. You should know that a surface layer has to be, it's not just a couple of isobars bending around like that with a swirly thing on a map. You should know that's not a low. It's a trough of low pressure, yes. And I've never ever said anything different. I've always made that distinction. In fact, last event I said the same thing. It's a trough of low pressure. It's not a low. Now, you can call it cyclone, you can call it whatever we want in Australia. If you had a degree in atmospheric science, you should know we don't call them cyclones in Australia. We call them lows. That is what that term means. Correct. Yeah, good job. No, the reason he's here is because he has to use his degree somehow, and he's just been, he's got a. Oh, oh, freaks! Why don't you go to the other pages who've been out there crying about East Coast loads and how it's dangerous and that sort of stuff, and actually go and question some of their understanding of models and that sort of stuff. No, because you won't, because there's nothing in that for easy. You can't flex your degree on there. Yeah. Anyway, I am going to go because I have to go and obviously do my better half duties. We'll be back tomorrow night. Freaks, you're more than welcome anytime. Happy, no worries, but don't be just a douchebag. Like this, no one's a douchebag to you. It goes both ways. Happy to debate you. And we will see what this week has in store. Whether we're going to get wet or we're not going to get wet. At this stage, it looks pretty good, but again, we'll leave it up to Mother Nature, as we usually do, and we sit back and wait and see exactly what is going on. In terms of this, it looks interesting. There is definitely some upper cold air, some very cold air heading this way, and that is always a good sign that we shall see something happen, whether it's on for us or it's off the coast. Time will tell. And tomorrow morning's model runs will be very interesting. But with Access and EC and Icon, and to a lesser extent GFS agreeing, generally, interesting times ahead. Alrighty, well, it has been a pleasure, even with you having Mr. Freaks, flexing over there with your atmospheric science degree. That's lovely. Congratulations. Always welcome here. We won't ban you like other people do and shut down discussion. That's cool. Have your perspective absolutely anytime. See, didn't kick you, didn't moderate you. Don't believe in that stuff. Have your opinion. Absolutely believe in that stuff. But you don't have to be a douchebag about it. Not at any time. I'm going to get going. And I'm going to wish you all a fabulous evening. We'll be back obviously again with more fabulous information tomorrow about what we can expect this weekend. Otherwise, have a fantastic one and be kind to people, even freaks. Be kind to him. Everybody deserves kindness, even though they may not give it back. Everybody deserves it. Have a great one, and I'll catch you in the morning. Maybe not. That was I put this on, didn't it? Let's go. No, I'm not going to play it tonight. Look. Well, over here as well. I wonder what's going on. Everybody's singing marking up. Oh, no music tonight. It's always a muck around. We'll just say good night and look after yourselves, and I'll catch